Julian Assange, WikiLeaks founder, has been denied bail in a UK court today. And somebody who's been watching this story for some time now is Robert Mahoney, who's the Deputy Executive Director for the Committee to Protect Journalists, so the CPJ, and he joins us now via Skype. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, Mr. Mahoney. It seems as if one step forward and then perhaps steps back again for Julian Assange. He was celebrating the other day that a UK court had blocked his extradition to the United States, but he's still in jail.
Indeed, and will remain there as long as the United States appeal against that ruling continues, which will be at least another week and a half. And I think, apart from Julian Assange, what's at stake here is the principle of journalism, the right of journalists to report, because the judge in the UK did not extradite Mr. Assange because she said he was mentally unfit to go into a US prison. She didn't actually criticize the charges that were brought by the Department of Justice, which we believe, in effect, criminalize journalism.
All right, to help our viewers understand, because this story has been running for quite a long time now. In fact, it goes back to when Barack Obama was still president. What is he accused of doing, and why do you think he hasn't broken any laws?
Well, he is accused of giving classified information to a journalist, and also of working with Private Chelsea Manning to get more information. The Barack Obama administration looked at this and decided not to prosecute because of the implications for journalism under First Amendment protections in the US. So they didn't decide to prosecute, but the Trump administration has pushed ahead vigorously, and they're using a very old piece of anti-spy legislation that dates from the First World War, which is an incredibly blunt tool, and which actually makes it a criminal offense to receive this to publish this information. And that makes investigative reporting very, very difficult. It is a form of government censorship.
Was there something in those leaks that the Americans would have been worried about? I seem to remember at the time they talked about the safety and security of perhaps some of their personnel abroad.
Yes, and I think that, any responsible journalist is going to look at the information which is leaked and redact or take out information that could lead to the physical danger or harm in any way of individuals, and that's what has happened with previous WikiLeaks information that has come out. What concerns me and concerns journalists is that the administration is going after whistleblowers, is going after journalist sources, and it's a way of silencing journalists. We will never find out what government is doing if we are not able to report on information which is given to us in good faith by people who work inside the administration. Just think of all the scandals that have been exposed from Watergate onwards because of that.
Joe Biden was part of the Obama administration at the time. So is it likely that this will go away in just 15 days' time?
I think it would be foolish to assume that the Department of Justice will just drop this prosecution. I hope it does. Biden was part of an administration which looked at this issue and decided not to prosecute. So maybe he will do what his former boss did, which is make the determination that the First Amendment applies to everyone, not just journalists, and that the harm that this prosecution under the Espionage Act do to reporting outweighs whatever he may think are advantages to national security.
All right, so as I hear you speaking, this is more than just about Julian Assange, but about journalism in general that's at stake in the way that this matter is dealt with.
Absolutely. There's a huge principle here is it criminalizes the possession of information. As it stands now, if you or I have a source in government that gives us information, we are entitled to publish that. If all sources are now going to be prosecuted under an Espionage Act and risk huge jail sentences, don't forget, Julian Assange is liable to 75 years in prison. These charges were put forward. That's going to have a terrible chilling effect on journalism and on sources of journalism, and it's intentional. It's intended to shield government from public scrutiny and to kill off transparency.
All right. Is there a point at which a line must be drawn? Because journalists will receive information. We don't know what the motivations of those supplying it might be. And if that information is classified, should journalists still receive that information and publish?
If the journalists decide that that is in the public interest, absolutely. What we have seen is the overclassification of information over the last few years. The government classifying far too much information was previously available. So we are suffering from the opposite problem. And journalists have received information from platforms such as WikiLeaks, from whistleblowers such as Chelsea Manning, and they have exercised normal journalist ethics and caution in handling that information, whether it's the war logs on Afghanistan and Iraq, Panama Papers, and other big leaks to the press. Journalists have exercised great prudence to ensure that what they publish does not harm individuals or state. But what some states would like to do is have us become just ciphers and go to press conferences and say what the government wants us to say. That isn't journalism, that's advertising.
All right. I mean, Julian Assange's case, very well publicized and very well known internationally. But here on the continent, there are many Julian Assanges that are suffering and perhaps with no media to help them in similar circumstances. I'm sure that this is something as CPJ that you're seeing in Africa and other parts of the world as well, that there are many more Julian Assanges.
Well, Julian Assange, as far as I'm concerned, is a publisher or a provider of information. What we at the Committee to Protect Journalists have just done is published our annual census of journalists in prison around the world, and that's a record number. And some 45 of those journalists in jail globally are on the African continent. There are very, very many brave journalists in Africa who have been holding governments to account, trying to inform their public that they've been put behind bars.
And that a lot of this is done beyond or in countries that are at peace. And so that this really is more about politics than it is about anything else.
This is about governments who don't want criticism, who don't want scrutiny, who can't stand being questioned as to their motives, and therefore they try to shut down journalists who want to shine a light. That's something which we've seen growing increasingly, and it's unfortunate. There's a wave of authoritarianism sweeping the world, and Africa is no exception.